Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that is rarely discussed with honesty. Women, you have no idea what men truly notice about you, and it's not what you might think. You see, we live in a world that constantly bombards you with the idea that beauty is the ultimate currency, that if you just look a certain way, men will notice, desire, and cherish you. And sure, beauty has its place, but it's not the whole story, not even close. Because men, real men, are watching, perceiving, and evaluating things that are much deeper than just appearances. Men don't always articulate what they notice, but don't be fooled. They see more than they say. Women often believe that if a man isn't vocal about what he observes, then he isn't paying attention. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Men are constantly observing, analyzing, and making silent judgments about the women in their lives, whether consciously or unconsciously. They notice the way a woman carries herself, her expressions, the tone of her voice, and the way she interacts with others. And while they may not verbalize these observations, they store them as key indicators of who she really is beyond the surface. Consider this: when a woman walks into a room, a man notices more than just her looks. He notices her energy, the way she holds her shoulders, whether she walks with confidence or hesitancy. Is she comfortable in her own skin, or does she appear self-conscious and unsure? Men are deeply attuned to nonverbal cues, and these subtle signs speak volumes. If a woman walks in with a sense of ease, with her head high and movements fluid, it signals self-assurance. And confidence is magnetic. It draws people in without a word being spoken. Beyond physical presence, men pay attention to the way a woman treats those around her. Does she greet people warmly, or is her kindness reserved only for those she deems important? Is she patient with waitstaff, or does she display entitlement? A man might not always comment on these things, but he is registering them nonetheless. He is taking mental notes about the kind of person she is, about whether she exudes genuine warmth or simply performs kindness when it is convenient. Another key aspect that men notice is the way a woman reacts in social situations, particularly in moments of discomfort or challenge. Is she easily flustered, or does she handle unexpected situations with grace? Men admire women who can remain composed, who can think and respond instead of merely reacting. If a conversation takes a tense turn, does she engage thoughtfully, or does she allow her emotions to dictate her response? Emotional intelligence is something men appreciate more than they often express. They see the difference between someone who can navigate complex situations with wisdom and someone who spirals into unnecessary conflict. Men also pay attention to a woman's voice, not just the sound of it, but the way she speaks and what she chooses to say. There is a difference between a woman who speaks with intention and one who simply fills the air with words. Men notice the way a woman articulates herself, whether her words carry weight or whether they are spoken merely for the sake of being heard. A woman who speaks with confidence, clarity, and purpose is far more engaging than one who seeks attention through empty words. Men are drawn to substance, to depth, to conversations that reveal insight rather than shallow self-indulgence. Additionally, men take note of how a woman reacts to the presence of other women. Is she secure in herself, or does she become competitive and defensive? A woman who constantly compares herself to others, who subtly undermines other women in conversation, signals insecurity. And while she may not realize it, a man is paying attention. A woman who uplifts others, who isn't threatened by another woman's beauty or success, demonstrates a rare kind of confidence, one that is deeply attractive. Another crucial aspect men observe is how a woman handles attention. Does she seek it desperately, or does she remain grounded regardless of whether she is being noticed? A woman who needs constant validation, who is always positioning herself to be at the center of focus, can quickly become exhausting. On the other hand, a woman who is secure, who doesn't feel the need to chase admiration, is inherently more appealing. Men respect women who don't need to be the loudest in the room to feel valuable. It's also important to understand that men notice how a woman treats herself. Self-respect is something that cannot be faked, and men can tell when a woman values herself versus when she is simply trying to appear as if she does. A woman who takes care of her mind and body, who sets boundaries and doesn't tolerate disrespect, earns a man's admiration far more than a woman who sacrifices her dignity for validation. Men may not always say it out loud, but they recognize when a woman has a strong sense of self-worth, and that recognition influences how they perceive her. Men observe much more than they express, and they are constantly forming impressions based on what they see. They notice authenticity, self-assurance, and the way a woman carries herself in the world. They may not always vocalize these observations, but their actions will often reveal the conclusions they've drawn. A woman who understands this, who realizes that she is being seen in ways beyond the superficial, will recognize the power she holds, not in how she looks, but in how she moves through life with confidence and grace. Physical beauty might be the first thing that catches a man's eye, but it is confidence and poise that truly captivate and hold his attention. The reality is that beauty, as society defines it, is everywhere. In the age of filters, cosmetic enhancements, and curated social media images, conventional attractiveness is no longer rare. But what remains undeniably rare and far more powerful is a woman who possesses true confidence, one that is not performative but deeply rooted in self-assurance. Men are instinctively drawn to a woman who carries herself with a quiet certainty, someone who does not seek permission to take up space but does so naturally. There is an undeniable difference between a woman who walks into a room hoping to be noticed and a woman who walks into a room already aware of her value, regardless of whether anyone acknowledges it. This presence, this ability to exist unapologetically, is what makes a woman memorable. It is not arrogance, nor is it an act of superiority, but rather an inner stability that communicates to the world that she is at peace with who she is. What many women do not realize is that men are highly attuned to the difference between projected confidence and genuine self-worth. Some women attempt to mask insecurity by speaking louder, demanding attention, or using external validation as a crutch. But men see through this. They recognize when confidence is fragile, when it is dependent on constant affirmation. On the other hand, when a woman possesses true poise, she does not need external reinforcement to feel secure. She does not shrink herself to make others comfortable, nor does she overcompensate by trying to be the most impressive person in the room. Instead, she is simply present, and that presence alone is enough. Men also take notice of how a woman reacts to challenges and setbacks. Does she crumble under pressure, or does she navigate difficulties with composure? A woman who can handle life's unpredictability with grace demonstrates a form of resilience that is far more attractive than physical beauty. When a woman is easily rattled by minor inconveniences, constantly overwhelmed by stress, or emotionally volatile in the face of adversity, it signals instability. And while men may not always articulate this, they instinctively know that a woman who lacks emotional resilience may bring unnecessary turbulence into their lives. In contrast, a woman who remains steady, who can manage her emotions without allowing them to dictate her every reaction, commands a different level of respect. Another crucial aspect of confidence that men notice is how a woman engages in conversation. There is an undeniable difference between a woman who speaks with intention and one who speaks out of a need for validation. A confident woman does not feel compelled to prove her worth in every interaction. She does not seek approval with every word she says, nor does she tailor her opinions to fit the expectations of those around her. Instead, she speaks because she has something of substance to say, and when she listens, she does so with genuine interest rather than merely waiting for her turn to talk. Men are drawn to women who can hold an engaging, thoughtful conversation, women who are comfortable with both expressing their ideas and allowing space for others to do the same. Additionally, confidence manifests in the way a woman presents herself, not in terms of conforming to beauty standards, but in the way she takes care of herself. It is not about wearing expensive clothes or following the latest fashion trends. It is about a woman who values herself enough to maintain a sense of self-respect in her appearance. Men notice when a woman puts effort into herself, not for external approval, but as a reflection of her own self-worth. A woman who dresses in a way that makes her feel powerful, who moves with a sense of certainty in her own body, signals to the world that she understands her value. It is not about perfection, it is about presence. Perhaps one of the most overlooked aspects of confidence is a woman's ability to be secure in relationships. Many people believe that being wanted by a man is the ultimate validation, but a truly confident woman does not measure her worth by whether or not she is in a relationship. She does not chase attention, nor does she settle for treatment that does not align with her standards. She knows that being alone is not a reflection of inadequacy, but rather an opportunity to cultivate a life that is fulfilling on its own. Men, take note of this. A woman who is secure in herself, who does not cling desperately or try to control a man out of fear of losing him, is inherently more attractive. She operates from a place of abundance rather than scarcity, knowing that she is not defined by another person's presence or absence in her life. Men notice confidence not because it is loud or demanding, but because it is steady. A woman who moves through the world with a sense of self, who does not compromise her integrity for approval, and who carries herself with effortless certainty will always command attention in a way that surpasses mere physical beauty. Over time, beauty fades, trends change, and external validation comes and goes, but the presence of a confident woman remains unforgettable. Men may not always express it outright, but they are deeply aware of a woman's temperament and emotional state. More than just physical beauty or charm, a man is drawn to the energy a woman brings into his life. Kindness and emotional stability are not just desirable traits, they are foundational qualities that determine the depth and longevity of a relationship. A woman who radiates warmth, who is emotionally balanced and mature, becomes a source of peace rather than chaos, and men instinctively recognize and appreciate this. One of the most overlooked yet significant things men notice is how a woman treats people when there is nothing to gain. In everyday interactions, whether with strangers, service workers, or acquaintances, men are silently observing whether a woman embodies genuine kindness or if her warmth is selective, reserved only for those she considers important. A woman who displays patience, who listens attentively, who expresses gratitude without expectation. These small, seemingly insignificant moments leave a lasting impression, because ultimately men are looking for a partner who will not only be kind to them, but who possesses a nature that extends kindness to the world around her. Beyond kindness, emotional stability plays an equally crucial role in how a man perceives a woman. Life is unpredictable, full of challenges, and men notice how a woman reacts when things do not go according to plan. Does she spiral into unnecessary drama? Does she let every inconvenience disrupt her peace? Or does she handle adversity with a sense of balance and perspective? Men instinctively seek relationships that offer security, and emotional stability is at the heart of that security. A woman who is constantly caught in a cycle of emotional extremes, one moment elated, the next devastated, can create an environment of unpredictability and stress. While this may be exciting in the short term, over time it becomes exhausting. A man is naturally drawn to a woman who brings a sense of calm rather than one who thrives on conflict. This does not mean that men expect women to suppress their emotions or never express themselves. It means that a woman who can process her emotions with maturity, who communicates thoughtfully rather than reacts impulsively, is deeply valued. When disagreements arise, does she seek to understand and resolve the issue, or does she escalate the situation unnecessarily? A woman who can navigate conflict with grace, who is willing to have difficult conversations without resorting to blame or manipulation, stands out profoundly. Men also take note of how a woman handles her own inner world. Does she take responsibility for her happiness, or does she rely on external circumstances or on a man to regulate her emotions? A woman who has a strong sense of self, who understands that fulfillment comes from within rather than from validation, is far more attractive than one who constantly seeks reassurance to feel secure. There is a difference between needing support and being emotionally dependent. Men respect women who have cultivated their own emotional resilience, who can find joy and meaning independently rather than looking for someone else to provide it. A crucial aspect of emotional stability that men subconsciously assess is how a woman deals with stress and setbacks. Every person will face difficulties, whether personal challenges, career struggles, or unexpected hardships. A woman who can navigate these situations with composure, who can acknowledge difficulties without being consumed by them, demonstrates a level of emotional intelligence that men deeply appreciate. If every setback leads to disproportionate distress, if every inconvenience turns into a crisis, it signals a lack of inner strength. Conversely, a woman who can acknowledge problems, process them rationally, and move forward with resilience becomes a pillar of strength in a relationship. Furthermore, emotional stability extends to how a woman treats herself. Men notice whether a woman speaks about herself with confidence or with self-doubt. Does she constantly criticize herself? Is she consumed by insecurity? A woman who is comfortable with who she is, who treats herself with kindness rather than self-deprecation, sets a powerful example. When a woman respects herself, she is far less likely to engage in toxic behaviors, whether that be unnecessary jealousy, passive-aggressive communication, or an endless pursuit of perfection. A woman who has a balanced relationship with herself brings that same balance into her relationships with others. Another often unspoken but critical element men observe is how a woman handles other women. Is she quick to judge and gossip, or does she uplift and encourage? A woman who is constantly engaging in negativity, who is competitive and envious rather than supportive, reveals an inner turmoil that does not go unnoticed. A woman who can celebrate the successes of others without feeling threatened, who does not engage in unnecessary rivalry, exudes a quiet confidence that men deeply respect. At the core of all of this is one simple truth. Men want to be with someone who brings them peace, not chaos. This does not mean that life will always be easy or that relationships will be free of challenges. But when a man sees that a woman approaches life with patience, grace, and kindness, he knows that she is someone who will not only be a source of joy, but also a partner in navigating life's complexities. Over time, beauty may fade, external circumstances may change, but the presence of emotional stability and kindness remains a constant, creating a foundation for something truly meaningful. Men notice when a woman is real, when she is unapologetically herself, rather than trying to fit into an image she thinks will be admired. Authenticity is one of the most compelling qualities a person can have, yet it is often overshadowed by the pressure to appear perfect. In today's world where social media, filters, and curated lifestyles dominate, it can be easy to believe that perfection is what makes someone attractive. But the reality is that men are not drawn to an image, they are drawn to depth, sincerity, and a sense of realness that cannot be fabricated. A woman who is authentic does not need to constantly adjust her personality based on who she is around. She does not seek approval at the expense of her own identity. Men notice when a woman is comfortable in her own skin, when she speaks and acts in a way that aligns with who she truly is, rather than what she believes others want to see. This kind of self-assurance is rare because it requires a person to be genuinely content with themselves. It means having opinions and standing by them, expressing emotions without fear of judgment, and not molding oneself into an ideal just to gain favor. Men also recognize when a woman is performing rather than being genuine. There is a difference between confidence that comes from within and confidence that is merely projected. Some women try to appear self-assured by exaggerating their strengths or by adopting an overly polished persona that leaves no room for vulnerability. But men can sense when something feels artificial. The need to constantly prove oneself or maintain an unrealistic standard of perfection can be exhausting, not just for the woman, but for those around her. One of the most powerful aspects of authenticity is emotional honesty. A woman who is real does not suppress her feelings to appear agreeable, nor does she exaggerate them for attention. She expresses herself in a way that is true to her experiences rather than tailoring her emotions to fit a certain narrative. Men appreciate when a woman is emotionally transparent, when she is not afraid to be vulnerable, but also does not use vulnerability as a means of manipulation. There is strength in being open about one's feelings without letting those feelings dictate every action or expectation. Another important element of authenticity is the ability to embrace imperfections. No one is flawless, yet many people exhaust themselves trying to hide their perceived weaknesses. A woman who owns her imperfections, who can laugh at herself and acknowledge her shortcomings without insecurity, is far more attractive than someone who is constantly trying to appear flawless. Men take note of how a woman handles mistakes. Does she become defensive and try to cover them up? Or does she accept them with grace and learn from them? The latter demonstrates a level of maturity and self-awareness that is both rare and admirable. Authenticity also extends to the way a woman interacts with others. Men notice when a woman is consistent in her behavior, when she treats everyone with the same level of respect and kindness regardless of the situation. A woman who acts differently depending on who is watching, who changes her personality based on social settings, signals a lack of true self-acceptance. On the other hand, a woman who is the same whether she is speaking to a friend, a colleague, or a stranger demonstrates an integrity that is deeply attractive. Another major factor men observe is how a woman defines her worth. Is she constantly seeking external validation, or does she have an internal sense of value? A woman who relies on others to determine her self-esteem, whether through compliments, social media approval, or attention from men, can come across as insecure, even if she outwardly appears confident. On the other hand, a woman who knows her worth, regardless of outside opinions, carries an undeniable presence. She does not need to prove anything because she already believes in herself. This level of self-assurance is not about arrogance. It is about understanding one's own value without needing constant reassurance. Authenticity is also reflected in a woman's choices, how she spends her time, what she prioritizes, and what she stands for. A woman who pursues her own passions, who engages in activities that bring her joy rather than simply following trends, has a depth that is naturally attractive. Men appreciate when a woman has a sense of purpose beyond external validation. Whether it's a career, a creative pursuit, or a cause she deeply believes in, having something that drives her shows that she is living for herself rather than for the approval of others. Lastly, men take notice of a woman's ability to be present. In a world where distractions are constant and where many people are consumed by how they appear rather than how they feel, a woman who is fully engaged in the moment stands out. When she listens with intent. When she speaks with meaning. She is not preoccupied with impressing others, but is instead focused on experiencing life as it comes. This kind of authenticity is magnetic. It makes a woman not just attractive, but unforgettable. Authenticity is not about being perfect. It is about being real. Men notice when a woman is comfortable with who she is, when she does not pretend to be someone she's not, and when she lives in alignment with her true self. In the end, it is not perfection that draws people in. It is sincerity, depth, and the confidence to be exactly who you are. Men notice far more than they express. And one of the most significant things they pay attention to is how a woman makes them feel. Beyond appearance, beyond words, it is the emotional experience of being around her that truly leaves an impression. People remember how others make them feel, and men, whether consciously or subconsciously, are constantly assessing whether a woman brings positivity, peace, and inspiration into their lives, or whether she introduces stress, unpredictability, and negativity. A woman's presence is not just about physical beauty. It is about the emotional energy she carries. Does she radiate warmth? Does she make those around her feel at ease? Does she inspire confidence and bring out the best in others? Men are highly sensitive to the emotional atmosphere a woman creates. A woman who is joyful, playful, and engaging naturally draws people in, while one who is perpetually critical, pessimistic, or emotionally draining often repels those around her, even if they are unable to articulate why. One of the most overlooked but deeply impactful traits a woman can have is a sense of encouragement. Men, just like women, carry their own doubts, struggles, and insecurities. The world is full of pressures, expectations to perform, to achieve, to be strong, and often men do not have many spaces where they can be vulnerable. A woman who sees a man's potential, who believes in him, and who encourages him to rise to that potential is unforgettable. She becomes a source of strength rather than another source of pressure. This is not about blind support or ignoring flaws. Rather, it is about seeing someone's capability and reminding them of it when they forget. A man may not always express it, but he deeply values the woman who makes him feel capable, who does not belittle or undermine him, but instead reinforces his confidence. A woman who encourages rather than criticizes excessively fosters a connection that is both uplifting and enduring. Beyond encouragement, men take note of how a woman reacts to their vulnerabilities. Many men have been conditioned to suppress their emotions, to carry their burdens alone. A woman who makes a man feel safe enough to open up without fear of judgment creates a level of trust that is rare and valuable. If a man senses that his struggles will be met with ridicule, impatience, or disinterest, he will retreat emotionally. But if he feels that his emotions are received with understanding, he will see that woman as someone truly special. Men are also deeply aware of how a woman handles conflict. Every relationship, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, will experience disagreements. The way a woman navigates these moments says far more about her than the conflict itself. Does she approach disagreements with patience and a desire for resolution, or does she escalate situations with unnecessary drama? A woman who can communicate honestly, who can listen without immediately becoming defensive, and who seeks to resolve issues rather than simply win arguments is someone men remember. There is an undeniable contrast between a woman who creates emotional chaos and one who brings stability. Some people thrive on drama, on emotional highs and lows, but this kind of instability is exhausting. A man may initially be drawn to the intensity of such a dynamic, but over time he will seek peace. A woman who remains steady, who does not allow temporary emotions to dictate her entire demeanor, becomes a source of comfort rather than stress. Equally important is a woman's ability to create joy in the everyday. Men notice when a woman can find happiness in simple moments, when she laughs freely, when she appreciates life without always needing something extravagant to feel fulfilled. A woman who is easily entertained, who can turn ordinary moments into something enjoyable, is deeply attractive. It signals that she is not dependent on external factors for happiness, that she brings joy with her rather than waiting for it to be provided. Men also take note of how a woman treats happiness in a relationship. Some people approach relationships with a mindset of expectation rather than appreciation. They focus on what they are not getting rather than what they already have. A woman who is constantly dissatisfied, who sees a relationship as a transaction rather than a connection, quickly drains the joy from any dynamic. On the other hand, a woman who expresses gratitude, who notices and acknowledges effort rather than simply expecting more, fosters an environment where both people feel valued. Beyond relationships, men observe how a woman interacts with life itself. Does she complain constantly, or does she find solutions? Is she focused on what is wrong, or does she see what is right? A woman who approaches life with optimism, who does not let setbacks define her, who refuses to be a victim of circumstances, is inspiring. Men are drawn to women who face life with resilience, who do not crumble under pressure, but instead adapt and move forward with strength. Ultimately, men notice how a woman makes them feel, not just in fleeting moments, but over time. A woman who uplifts, who provides peace rather than chaos, who encourages rather than criticizes, and who brings joy rather than negativity, leaves a lasting impression. Long after beauty fades, after words are forgotten, it is the emotional experience of being around someone that remains. And men, just like women, are drawn to those who make life lighter, richer, and more meaningful. Men may not always articulate what they notice, but they are constantly observing, feeling, and evaluating the emotional experience a woman brings into their lives. Beyond beauty, beyond surface level attraction, what truly captures a man's attention and respect is a woman's character, her kindness, her emotional stability, her authenticity, and the energy she brings into every interaction. A woman who embodies grace rather than chaos, who encourages rather than criticizes, who is confident in her own identity rather than seeking constant validation, stands out in ways that are far more enduring than mere physical appeal. At the heart of it all, men are drawn to women who make them feel seen, supported, and at peace, not by sacrificing their own identity to please a man, but by being so deeply rooted in their own sense of self that they naturally bring stability and warmth into any relationship. A woman who is kind, not just selectively, but as a way of being, who embraces authenticity over perfection, who understands her worth independent of external approval, and who brings positivity rather than unnecessary conflict, creates an environment where connection can truly flourish. Long after the first impression fades, it is these qualities that determine the strength and longevity of any meaningful relationship. It is not about being perfect, it is about being real. And in a world full of distractions, facades, and fleeting attractions, a woman who carries herself with sincerity, emotional depth, and inner confidence will always be unforgettable.